What's up guys, this is Theo here coming to you live with another coding tutorial. We're back at CodeCademy to start with Introduction to ReactJS, the second section, part 2, and in the series this is part 8. So let's get to it. Click continue, and I'm going to go back to go to the course page and then start us out with this first lesson. So it says, welcome to Introduction to ReactJS Part 2. During this course, you will learn more ReactJS fundamentals. You will also learn some popular strategies for combining these fundamentals. We call these strategies programming patterns. If learning fundamental skills is like viewing a React app through a microscope, then learning programming patterns is like removing the microscope and viewing an app with the naked eye. In the next course, we'll step back even further and view a React app from a distance to see how it fits all together. At the end of the course, you will install and configure ReactJS on your local computer. Click next to begin. Okay. Let's learn our first programming pattern. In this lesson, we'll take a look at a simple version of a programming pattern. The following lessons will expand upon that lesson, and by the end, we'll have a programming pattern in its full complexity. Our programming pattern uses two React components, a stateful component and a stateless component. Stateful describes any component that has a getInitial state function. Stateless describes any component that does not. In our pattern, a stateful component passes its state down to a stateless component. Click next to walk through an example. Okay, so let's make a stateful. Let me reset this. Restart, reset. And it says, let's make a stateful component pass its state to a stateless component. To make that happen, you need two component classes, a stateful class and a stateless class. We'll build a stateful class first. On line 1 of parent.js, require the ReactJS library. So we'll say raw react equals require react, and then we need the DOM as well. So we'll say react DOM equals require react DOM. And then 3 and 4 will be empty, so we go to 5. And then we'll create our component called parent, which will just use React's create class method, which is a function which takes in an object. And then on that, we will have a render method, which is a function which is going to return a div at this point. And close that off with a semicolon. Let's run that, make sure that gives us the green light. Let's see if this works. See if it's going to be slow again today. Okay. Let's make sure. Okay, cool, that's good. And then we also need to give it the getInitialState method. So I'll type that in here. So getInitialState is a function. This is just going to return an object with the key of name and the value of for start. And then also we need a comma so it's still rendered out. Let's make sure to run this. Let's see if this indeed works. Okay. Let's see. State. Okay, cool. So that works. Let's move on to 4. Great. You just made a stateful component class named parent. Now let's make our stateless component class. So select child.js. So we need to require React again for React. And I think it's pretty helpful to type it all out. You know, I mean, you could copy and paste, and sometimes I do, but it trains, you know, your muscle memory. On line 3, declare a new variable called child, and this will be react.create class. Function takes in an object, and then we give it the render method. So render function. This will return each one for now. Object this property. Let's make sure that works. So the pattern is pretty similar each time. Let's see if this works. Cool. Child is going to receive a prop called name and display that prop on the screen. How can you make a component display a prop called name? To access a prop, use the expression this.props.name of prop. To make a component display something, include that thing in the render function's return statement. You need to include this.props.name inside of child's render function's return statement. So say this.props.name. Hey, my name is. Let's run that. This shouldn't, I don't think this will work though, because we still need to actually apply the name, but just doing it one piece, crap, just double. So what we need to do actually is do a name. I'll say Theo. Now that should work. Cool. The parent is going to pass a prop to a child. That means that the parent is going to render a child. Rendering is the only way for a component to pass props to another component. That means that child.js needs to be, what did I do? Let me go back to 4. So we got to do module.exports on the child. So we just export all of this functionality. We'll say exports equals child. And then once we get that out, let's run that, make sure that works. All we're doing is we're just giving parent.js access to this once we add in a require statement. So cool. And that's it. Child is ready to inherit a prop and display it. So a parent is supposed to display, supposed to pass its state to a child before a parent can pass anything. You need to import child, so let's import it. So for child equals require to dot, what is it, dot child, dot JS. You don't need the JS, I'm just going to put it in there. And then let's run this, see if we can get part 1 up and working. Okay, make sure that works. Okay, cool. Now a parent's ready to pass its state to a child inside of a parent's render function. Inside of parent's render function, get rid of the divs and replace it with child. So let's do that. We'll say child. Let's get rid of that. And then we're also going to give it a name attribute, which is our key. And then we want the name, so we'll say this dot state dot name. And we'll run that, and this should looks like this should now bind it with further, if I'm not mistaken. Let's make sure it indeed works for us though. Okay, cool. But we gotta render it out first, so let's do that real quick. So we will do React DOM dot render. Dot render, and then we'll pass it our component, which is parent, and then let me get rid of that extra one. Make this self-closing, and our second argument, like always, will be document dot get element by ID, and then we'll pass it app, and then that should run. So let's fire that up. cool so far there. Awesome. Let's move on. Next. So it says, great work. You just passed information from a stateful component to a stateless component. You will be doing a lot of that. You learned earlier that a component can change its state by calling this.setState. You may have been wondering, how does a component change its props? The answer, it doesn't. A component should never update this.props. Look at bad.js to see an example of what not to do. So yeah, it's trying to update the props. So don't do that. This is potentially confusing. Props and state store dynamic information. Dynamic information can change by definition. If a component can't change its props, then what are props for? A React component should use props to store information that can be changed, but can only be changed by a different component. A React component should use state to store information that the component itself can change. That's a bit confusing. Don't worry, the next two lessons will be examples. So sort of how like on the parent component, we use the child's props, but we used its state to set it. So we were able to access that name variable and set its value depending on what we wanted it to be in that parent component. So up next is child components. Update the parent state. Learn to make a child component update its parent. So we'll do that in the next lesson. So that's it for this one, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, and thanks for watching. Always appreciate it. Thanks. Have a great day.